And now, it's The Law Show on CL 650. A comprehensive look at everything you need to know about the law.
We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have...
Very nicely done, Dwayne. Good song. You know, that was written about the Boeing factory in Everett, Washington. He was one of the workers on the line, and that song was about working with his coworkers. And we have a couple of coworkers here today from McQuarrieLLP, formerly known as McQuarrieHunter. So you've shortened the name, but you have a bigger office. What's going on over there in Surrey?
Yeah, actually, we took over another floor, so we're in expansion mode.
That's good.
The personal injury department is one of the groups that's getting larger.
Yeah. Now, McQuarriehunter, now McQuarrieLLP, is in Surrey Central Surrey. I just say both now.
Yeah, Central City Tower.
Okay, that's where you are. And yeah. I guess it's a good location because you are central to the whole of the Greater Vancouver area.
Yeah, we have a great location, and we're also right by transit there with the SkyTrain station, and right next to the new City Hall.
Now, this is an old firm, right?
Yes, it's actually our 50th anniversary this year.
Wow.
Yep.
So you are moving on up to a new floor, and how many lawyers do you have in the personal injury department?
Our personal injury group right now is 8 lawyers.
Okay. Is that the biggest group you have?
It's one of the biggest groups. We have a whole litigation side of the office, including family law. I believe David Halkett does a show with you guys as well. Yeah. Estate litigation. Leah Donaldson was, I believe, came with you as well on the show. And
we're getting everybody here on CL. We're going to have one by one. We'll have every lawyer from McQuarrieHunter, now called McQuarrieLLP, on the show. So it's interesting because you have this whole full-service law firm. Do you ever need to go and speak to other people outside of personal injury for any advice on things, or are you guys just...
We definitely take advantage of all the knowledge within our walls there, and there's often legal issues where one department will need advice from the other, and cross referrals between all the departments. It's definitely a good team we have there.
I think it's interesting because maybe, for example, I use you in a personal injury case, but I have no other lawyers that I know, right? You're my guy. So it might not have anything to do with the kind of law that you practice, but I'm going to phone you and say, I need, real estate something on the... Well, we'll get the guy down the hall or the woman down the hall to look after that, because that's the way it works. You have an accountant, you only maybe ever have contact with one lawyer, but the good thing is you have everybody else in the building.
Yeah, we're a full-service firm. We basically do everything other than immigration, criminal, and tax. So, it's a one-stop shop, and, we have clients that see us for various needs, from getting a will done to if they've been in a motor vehicle accident to incorporating a company or buying a house.
Okay, good to know. All right, so personal injury is basically, for the most part, from what I've learned having you both on the show before, is motor vehicle accidents, right, and dealing with ICBC.
Yes, it's not just motor vehicle accidents, but that's the majority of what we do is motor vehicle accident claims.
Now, Nate, the silent partner here, do you think it's better having one insurance company in British Columbia that you're dealing with, knowing it's up against ICBC versus maybe 20 or 30 different insurance companies?
Well, it depends what you mean by better. Better for who, right?
Well, at least it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. Is that one way to look at it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. I mean, there's for the public, there's advantages to having the monopoly insurer. One of those is these Part 7 benefits, the no-fault benefits that I think we might talk about later. I don't know. I've never practiced in a jurisdiction where there were, different insurance companies.
The best place to get into a motor vehicle accident in all of North America, I believe, is British Columbia.
Why is that?
It is ICBC's insurance policy and basic coverage is much better than, say if you're down in the States, these people have just very basic insurance all the time. And ICBC, for not much of a cost, provides you with great insurance and the UMP coverage as well for if someone's underinsured.
Yeah, we're going to get through all of those later.
Yeah, so I'll talk more about that. But the system we have here is a good insurance system, in my opinion.
It's interesting talking to lawyers who represent clients that go up against ICBC, free and willingly admit that it's a good system we have. And you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that's been in the news recently about the costs and the rates going up and things like that. But for a very long time, ICBC was very profitable and was bringing money into the government coffers. And part of the most profitable part of their business was the third-party policies, the optional insurance. And even though that's open to private competition, they had basically the market cornered on that. So I think things goes in cycles, and they will become profitable again. But people complaining about the rates or unhappy with the rates, I think Kevin makes a great point that we have really good coverage, and people who are injured in motor vehicle accidents that aren't their fault have access to full compensation, not partial compensation, and they have that in BC, and that's an important thing that I think we really believe in. And
if the system changed, then those people might be not compensated to a level for the extent of what the injuries are, and I believe a lot of people aren't educated on exactly what these changes would be going towards the no fault or whatnot, and the public should become aware of how these changes can affect them and how it would affect them or their family members if they were in a motor vehicle accident.
Now, the only other jurisdiction in Canada that has this sort of state-run or provincial-run insurance is Saskatchewan, where you two went to school, right?
That is correct.
Is that where you met?
That is where we met, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's right. That's
on the same hockey team.
Yeah.
And who's the D-man, who's the forward? Nate, you look like a stay-at-home D-man to me. What, am I wrong?
I was so bad that I just played wherever they told me to play. But Kevin was a scorer, that's for sure. And I was just...
I'd stand in front of the net and people would knock pucks off.
Stay-at-home D-man a good majority of the time. That's true, for sure. But talking about SGI, which is Saskatchewan's...
Yeah. I was going to say, are there big differences?
There are huge differences, yeah. So SGI was a no-fault jurisdiction, or Saskatchewan was a no-fault jurisdiction. They've now gone to a tort optional system, which is something that I think is indicative of a realization that pure no fault is not the way to go. It doesn't save you money. There's all kinds of studies that show that. It's not good for the consumers. So I think we're really lucky to have the system that we have in BC.
And the option system, for what I understand, is you can opt out of being able to do the full tort claim. Is that correct, Nate?
Yeah.
And and saves you some money. Well, the reality is when an insurance broker is just presenting this to you, they don't fully understand or often just don't explain exactly what that means. So you say, hey, it sounds great to save an extra $100, but then you're in a serious motor vehicle accident and your coverage just, you won't have the remedies that you otherwise would under a tort system, a full tort system like we have here in the ICBC current system, because you opted out of it just to save that $100.
And you're saying
so that can be detrimental to you.
This might be coming to BC, or there's talk about having a no fault in BC?
Well, I hope not.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big mistake.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine in Ontario whose wife was, just after they brought in the no fault in Ontario in the early 90s, I believe it was, and she was involved in a serious accident where the car rolled and crushed her, pinned her legs between her and another car, and the amount of money she got was nothing, really. And something affected her the rest of her life. So I don't personally want that.
No, if some rich kid blows a stop sign and paralyzes you, right? He should have to pay for the treatment that you require. He shouldn't get off not having to pay anything. And so the system we have is about personal responsibility, and no fault just eliminates that. There's no responsibility for your actions at all. So it hurts the victims and helps the wrongdoers is basically what it does.
So in our system, that's where you come in and you represent people who have been injured and they have a personal injury claim against ICBC, and you go to bat for them. Is that the basic way to describe it?
Exactly. We assess your claim, send you to the proper people to get the proper reports and diagnosis and prognosis, and ensure that you get fair compensation from ICBC. If the system were to change and we'd be at a no-fault system, likely you're not going to get a fair compensation for how this has affected your life, whether professionally, at work, into the future, personally, your loss of enjoyment of life. In a no-fault system where you're just set at various marks depending on what the injury is, the timeline of it, and so on. Someone who just sits at home, watches TV all day will get the same as someone who's out active every day, and as the injuries affected them much more. In our current system, we show how the person's life changed from the before the accident to after the accident.
I was going to ask,
like moving forward.
How do you assess that? Because often the people that are affected the most by this accident, maybe the person that's being injured doesn't realize how much they've changed. It's the wife or the husband or the brother or the sister or the parent sees it in them. Is that true?
We have that all the time. I do recall meeting with various clients where their partners with them or someone close to them is with them, a family member. And, I asked that question because you're not just compensated for the physical injuries, but also the emotional injuries, how it's changed you. And I asked them, I say, are you more short-tempered? Has your personality changed? Are you irritated? Are you sleep-deprived? I ask these questions, and they say, oh, no, I think I'm, still the same person. And the person next to them, their partner or whatnot, is just shaking their head saying, no, absolutely not. They're more irritable. They're short-tempered now. They're just not the same happy person as they were before. And sometimes being the person injured, you don't even realize how much it's changed you and affected you and those around you.
Especially if you've had a brain injury, you might not realize that you've been affected. You don't realize what you've lost.
Exactly.
It's the people around you can show quite easily, right?
Yes.
And that's what you rely on?
Yes, and they would be witnesses at the trial if it were to proceed that far.
Yeah, there's a famous American lawyer named Mo Levine. He's long since passed away, but he developed this theory called the whole man theory, and this was that it's impossible to injure part of a man. If you injure part of a man, you're injuring the whole person, and that any pain that he experiences affects not only him but the people around him. And that's what Kevin's talking about, is it affects everybody, not just the person who's injured.
Well, we all know that in our personal lives. If you're tired or you're hungry or you twisted your ankle and it's sore, you're not the same person than if you're feeling good, right?
Exactly.
And it affects the people around you. That's a simplified version of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so when we come back, we're going to get into, you touched on it earlier, about the ICBC system and how it's beneficial even if you're trying to make a claim against them and employing lawyers like yourselves to maybe go to trial. There's other funds there that you know about and have access to. We're going to continue our conversation with Kevin Hyde and Nate Hartney from McQuarrieLLP talking about personal injury next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.